2 week sabbatical in a way because
Two, one. Hey nerds, we're doing a spoiler recap and discussion of Ahsoka Part 5 called Shadow Warrior. Is written by and directed by Dave Filoni, and it starts now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin.
and I'm David.
And I'm Nathan.
So, welcome back to our live stream. I know that I was a little sick, so thank you to David and Nathan for covering for me to cover episodes 3 and 4. So we are covering part 5 of Star Wars Ahsoka, and the spoiler-free summary logline is that Ahsoka confronts her while Hera and her allies undertake a rescue mission. And again, this whole episode directed and written by Dave Filoni, and the whole thing is created by Dave Filoni. So he is in all three of those categories. So David, what do you think of this episode here?
This is by far the highest series. I loved it. And I really loved this episode. I really feel hyped about it.
Yeah. Oh, Nathan, what do you think about this episode here?
Yeah, I agree with David. This is probably my favorite episode. Maybe because I'm a Clone Wars / Rebels watcher, and I have a great affection for Ahsoka, and it was great to see some without giving away anything about the episode, because I mean the last episode ended with Anakin in it, so of course he's gonna factor into this episode. So there's
Right.
a lot of Clone Wars specific stuff in there, which is really cool. I think it has a lot of allusions to other genre fantasy, and we can get into that when we get into the breakdown, which is also pretty cool as well. And I think, and also some of the visuals were some of the best, or the that we've seen in Star Wars in TV or movies in a while, and we can also get into that when we start breaking it down with the screenshots. So yeah, it was a pretty good, solid episode.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Having watched the Mandalorian related episodes, we're talking about post Return of Jedi. So I'm not going to go back to Andor or even Obi-Wan Kenobi, because that was kind of like before episode 4. So we're talking about the time within the timeline of Star Wars where it's after Return of the Jedi. So I'm talking about Mandalorian seasons 1 and 3, the Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka. I think that this episode was definitely in my top 3 out of those 3 series that we've had so far. And we've had some pretty good episodes, of those ones. Just remember Ahsoka's debut in The Mandalorian. That was a great one. Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian, and also the Book of Boba Fett. I know that Nathan, you and I kind of geeked out when Cad Bane showed up in I think it was in Boba Fett. He showed up, and it was like so amazing. So those were kind of like some highlights of some episodes, but this is definitely in the top three because, like you said, it kind of mashes kind of like the Clone Wars stuff. It didn't deal with it. It kind of like was very self-contained in some ways, and told a really kind of rich story through a lot of different types of themes and genres, like you said, Nathan. And it really kind of and the visuals again were stunning at the same time. So I think that because of all those type of combination of things and the care that and the respect that Filoni kind of showed to the other type of material that he created in the other shows, I think that it really kind of solidifies this as a very good episode. And again, we can get into kind of like some of those themes and visuals as we move along. So having said all that, David, what do you think? What rating would you give it of episode of part five?
I would give it a 9.
Okay. Nathan, what do you think?
So I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days. I want to give headroom for it to get better, but like this was actually pretty good. So I think I would give it a movie marathon as well, and a 9. This is probably, like I said, for a lot of reasons, some of the best Star Wars that I've seen in a very long time, and that I'm more of a Star Trek person than a Star Wars person. But I mean, I watch it and I know I probably know a lot more than the average person about Star Wars. But like, this is actually pretty cool stuff, and I really like the Clone Wars and the Rebels shows. So yeah, it was. I think I give it a 9. It's really satisfying for people who've watched the Clone Wars and Rebels stuff for the last I don't know 10 years 15 years now. So yeah, it was a 9. I've watched it several times already. Even if I weren't preparing for our conversation, I would have watched it several times. So movie marathon.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to agree with all three of you. I think it's definitely going to be a movie marathon. I think that all the points that you made, Nathan, are all very legit. I think for me, it's definitely you get all the characters that we've seen in the Star Wars universe. Ahsoka is the only one that you've seen from the very beginning. I'm talking about if you watch Tales of the Jedi, the shorts on Disney Plus. It talks about Ahsoka's upbringing and her origin and how she was able to be one with the Force. And you evolve into kind of the Clone Wars, where even the Star Wars movie that people did not like. That was kind of like her debut in the Clone Wars universe, and then throughout the series, and then the brilliant kind of four-episode arc at the end of Clone Wars was like amazing stuff. You saw her ascension there, and then another phase of her life was the Rebels, being Fulcrum, and then her encounter with Vader in one of the I think it was the end of season 2 Rebels. So like having that all come about, and then now seeing her in live action Mandalorian, and now in her own show, you kind of see the whole evolution of that how many years of her life. It's just so amazing to kind of see all that, and to kind of be wrapped into that whole story, and really makes her character at times even more appealing than say the Skywalkers in some ways. So in that sense, I think that Filoni has done a really brilliant job to kind of explain her life story in a lot of ways. Yes, give it a 9, definitely. Because of all that.
Yeah, I mean, I care more about Ahsoka than I do Luke. And I know that's blasphemous for certain people, but I know a lot more about Ahsoka, and by the way, this is not a endorsement for like giving me a background story on. I actually like them to stop talking about Skywalkers. We've talked about this before. I don't need them to delve into to Luke and the time between the original series and the sequels. But like I honestly I like Anakin more than I like Luke at this point, because there's been a lot. I have a lot of backstory on Anakin and the Clone Wars. So yeah, Ahsoka and Ahsoka and Ahsoka comes with without all the murdering. So of course she's a little she's higher than higher than Anakin. So yeah, it's really satisfying to see her come full circle in a lot of ways in this series. So yeah, it was a really good episode. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so before we get into spoilers, I just wanted to give us a plug. So if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe. More content like this. More content like this. So yeah, let's get into some spoiler breakdown talk. Okay, so basically we left off from part 4 was at the end of it was with the encounter between Anakin and Ahsoka in the world between worlds. So those of you that did not watch Rebels, the world between worlds is kind of like this not ominous place, but it's kind of like a place where it's like time stands still, like it's very ethereal. It's not. It's just like this kind of like a space in some ways between the real world and whatever world is there. I don't really know the background of it that much, unfortunately. You know, I haven't read up too much about it. But go ahead, Nathan.
So it shows up in Rebels. We've seen Ahsoka there. We've also seen Ezra Bridger there. It connects. It's a place where the Force connects the past, the present, and the future. So there was a point in the Rebels show where, and Ezra in the Rebels show is set just before A New Hope, where Ezra was in the world between worlds, and he heard people from the original trilogy. He heard Qui-Gon from like the prequels, and he heard Rey from the future in the world between worlds. So you can get anywhere in time and space, basically, in the world between worlds.
And basically what happened was that actually with Ahsoka, what happened was that Ahsoka in one of the episodes of Rebels was fighting Vader, and basically she was trapped in that. I think I don't remember the planet that she was in. She's on. But they were trying.
It might have been Mustafar. I don't remember, but I don't
no,
remember.
it wasn't Mustafar. But it was one of the Sith planets.
It was a Sith planet. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what happened was that she was again at the end of the episode. It was assumed that Ahsoka had moved on, has passed on. But what happened was that in a subsequent episode, Ezra was the one that pulled her from that temple and that into the world between worlds, and that's how Ahsoka kind of lived in some ways, because she was actually fighting Vader and kind of forced Kanan and Ezra out of the temple while it was collapsing and things like that. So I did go back to the episode, I think 2 episodes, to kind of rewatch some of the stuff. So it was pretty interesting stuff there. But in any case, that's the world between worlds. So we find ourselves actually seeing Hera Syndulla walking out on Cetos, kind of trying to investigate, what happened with Sabine, because from the last episode we saw that Sabine had went with Morgan Elsbeth and also
Baylan Skull,
to those coordinates where they think Thrawn is located. So we don't get to see those 3 characters in this episode. So it was very focused on, again, Hera and her son Jason, and also Ahsoka and Anakin. So you see that it kind of gets some sort of, Jason kind of gets some sort of feeling right here, and we know that Jason is the son of Kanan Jarrus, who was a Padawan at the time during Rebels. So
actually he became Jedi.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So the
And
yeah,
so, yep.
before he gets his feeling, we have this scene with Wuhan and the Sabine's helmet. It just looks, he's like such a sad droid. So
Yeah.
this scenes like this make you kind of question how they treat droids, because if they have feelings, they're they're basically slaves. They shouldn't, like, it's like they write scenes like this, and then they have scenes in other movies and other projects where they're basically not treated like full human or sentient beings. But he seems to be actually feeling pain and regret here. He's like, they never listened to me. I told him to stay together, and you even see it's
Yeah.
look at the sad eyes.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen droids that have emote a lot more lately.
Yeah.
Even in Mandalorian season 3, we saw that. We also saw that in
Rogue
with
One, K2SO.
Yeah.
yep, K2SO. That's exactly K2SO, and also in
Yeah.
Solo. I mean, those people that saw Solo, you saw that Lando's co-pilot was we saw a lot of emotion of droids
Yeah.
that have been all throughout. So, I mean, even in the originals, we know that 3PO is, he emotes a lot, throughout the
I
original
mean,
Star
he's
Wars.
always
So,
exact. He's
I
always
don't think he shows
he's
some emotion, but not a
he's always
lot.
exasperated, and that could just be like a
Yes.
algorithm that's like a sassy algorithm, but like but like they try to show more emotions, I think, with the newer droids. Anyway, that was just an aside.
Right.
So before Jason senses anything as well, that we actually see Ahsoka and Anakin start to fight first. So
Right.
that scene comes before him sensing anything.
Right, right. So this is the world between worlds, and so this is where kind of Anakin. We kind of left off episode part 4, where Ahsoka is meeting with Anakin, and so it's kind of like this interaction. She's kind of shocked. She's kind of getting her bearings in some ways, but at the same time realized that she lost the lightsaber battle with Balin there, and so it was kind of like, again, the Master and Padawan reunited in a lot of ways. People are cheering, and you don't know kind of what his intentions are. But I kind of rewatched this scene just a few moments ago before I jumped on this live stream, and I'm kind of like trying to explain to my brother who's watching it right now, trying to explain to him like what this is like. What is Anakin's
Well, he
role
says that
here?
he's trying to
And
finish her training, right? That's what he says.
yeah,
Um,
but it's more, but like I try not to kind of like be too spoilery about it, but so I kind of like, in some analogy, I would say that he's kind of like an enhanced Force Ghost in some ways. It's like, yes, it's kind of like Force Ghost, but not what we've seen before in the past with Force Ghost. Yeah.
I don't know that he's so like at this point it doesn't really matter. Like I don't need this. I don't need this to be too explained, especially if she's really like half dead. Him not being an actual Force ghost and not like translucent, it would make
Yeah.
sense, because she's more closer to where he is in his realm of the dead than people
Hmm.
usually are when they see Force ghosts. So him being able to actually
Hmm.
interact with her, as opposed to just being able to speak to her, doesn't bother me too much.
Hmm.
There's also suggestions that he's not Anakin at all. He might be a manifestation of like the father, which is it's a deep cut reference to like Clone Wars. So, but anyway,
Hmm.
who was part of basically the a manifest which the father was the manifestation of like the balance between the Force. He had a daughter and a son. Anyway, who was the
Yeah,
dark side
yeah.
and the light side. So
Yep. I
so there are
remember
people that
that.
think
Yep.
that's who he is. And it's not actually Anakin, but like I said, I don't really need this explained that much. I mean, I understand the purpose of this entire thing was to get her through her issues with Anakin and feeling like,
Right.
and the issues that Baylan Skull specifically dug into her with in the previous episode, saying that your legacy, just like your master, is going to be of death. Like that's what held her back. That's why she lost the fight. And I think in Anakin's point of view anyway, that's why he says that the question here is to live or die. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is like back in like he always has these. I mean, notice during the start of Ahsoka series that Ahsoka herself has an internal struggle ever since she left the Jedi Order in Star Wars Clone Wars, because she has no idea like what exactly it is to be a Jedi. Even if she told Sabine that there's more to it than just being a Jedi. Even Baylan mentioned to her when they were fighting, saying like that a Jedi lost their ways and everything, and there's some methods of the Jedi cannot be done. Right. So, and Ahsoka felt that too. That and at the same time, when she knows that when she saw Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader in Rebels, she became more down herself, and then she's thinking that, what if I didn't leave? What happens if I stayed at the Jedi Order? Would it prevent Anakin to become who he is now, then? Or what happens if I stay, if I did left, or it's nothing at all? So I think that, as Nathan pointed out, that is this really Anakin's Force ghost, or just a manifestation in her head of her doubts and everything built up and brought to a form?
Yeah.
Or it could be a connection. So
yeah, that's the third option, that this is just a hallucination and it's what she needed to get over her issues, and because she's in the world between worlds, this manifestation is being created for her. So yeah, it's everything that's happening in there. You can think of as being from her subjective point of view. So you can't necessarily take anything at face value. It's for her. It's almost like a hallucination. Right. It's almost like a hallucination. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I think that any type of Force Ghost encounter that has happened in the Star Wars movies, it's pretty much, you could argue it's a hallucination in some ways too.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why I said it's more like an enhanced type of Force Ghost, because we haven't really seen like Force Ghosts in the movies done like lightsaber duels with their Padawans and things like that, with the apprentice and things. So you never kind of seen that. So
they're usually far more see through as well. So
exactly. So yeah, so it was definitely a very interesting kind of take on that whole relationship that hasn't really been explored in the past. So going to this scene right here, so this is where kind of Jason was saying to Hera that I sense something, I'm feeling something, and kind of asking his mother to kind of come with me, sense what's going on. At the same time, Carson right there is trying to he's kind of like feeling the pressure of all the leadership and command, trying to get them to report back to command and things like that. So so Hera's kind of like conflicted. Okay, should I report back to command, or should I listen to my son right now and to kind of further investigate what the heck is going on, and what happens to Bean and Morgan right now? So you can say Jason's kind of trying to describe to Hera, like, okay, can you hear some of the lightsaber duels and stuff like that? So good mix of sound right here of like kind of the waves crashing.
Yeah.
Became kind of like the lightsaber duel, and then like having Hera also listen to it, because Hera's not Force sensitive. Hera is just a starfight pilot. In a lot of ways.
She's not, but one of the things that people have been talking about in this show is that they kind of fixed the Force a little bit from the prequels and the Mandalorian stuff. The whole conversation that Ahsoka had with Sabine about the Force, everyone having the ability, but other people, people having a greater talent. So of course he has a greater talent, but like, so he was able to hear it easily, but she focused and she could hear it as well, which is why she listened to him. So I think this also goes back to the original movies, where it was either Yoda or Obi-Wan who said that the Force is in all of us. It surrounds us. It surrounds us.
It binds us.
It binds us.
Yoda,
so like, yeah,
Yoda said that.
Exactly.
Yoda said that. So Empire Strikes Back. Yeah.
So Hera being able to hear it is more in line with the original movies than the Metachlorian stuff that showed up in the prequels.
Yeah, that's kind of that as a Star Wars fan, we kind of disregard the midichlorian stuff.
Yeah.
And that actually, that Yoda scene is probably one of my favorite scenes of all time. It's just like so really deep and philosophical and just really, really great overall. But made me really, really love Star Wars because of that. But in any case, so she's able to kind of sense something. Her son was able to kind of sense something, and then basically Hera then tells Carson to kind of get his X-wings airborne to kind of do another sweep, even though Carson's like, "What the heck? We already did the sweep. We found nothing," and so kind of trying to order him to kind of look again. Let's see what's happening.
Yeah, it's so funny the conversation that he has quickly. This very short conversation he has with was it Wayun? I forget. It's
Huyang.
Huyang.
Yep.
He's like, yeah, his father was a Jedi, and so he has abilities. And Carson's like, look, it's like, okay. I was like, whatever. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting type of interactions there.
Yeah.
And then we go back to the World Between Worlds here.
This is a really cool
lightsaber duel. Yep. Yeah. Really cool lightsabers. So you can tell some of the movements of Anakin.
Yeah, the twirling.
Like Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then you see that he broke the bridge, kind of like from Thor. From the MCU, and she gets dropped into the Clone Wars. Now, this is all over social media, and we need to mention it that this young actress, was in like 2 other major movies in the past. David, did you see that? Yep.
Yeah, I did. I did not realize that this is the same actress of those 3 movies. Until you pointed out, I was like, "Whoa, wait a second!" Like. So.
Yeah, I just found it fascinating. I was like, so for those of you that did not look at social media, so she was young Gamora in Infinity War at the end of the scene of the Thanos snap, and then she was also in Barbie. So she was America Ferrera's character's daughter in Barbie. So I totally did not see that. I was like, wow, that's totally like. And also because she was much younger when she did Infinity War, so you don't really kind of see that type of progression. And she was not in makeup when she was in Barbie, so she was kind of like in human form in a lot of ways.
Right.
But yeah, this is really cool. I think that my brother also pointed out that that these clone troopers are all like kind of like real life. Live action.
Yeah, unlike the movie is they were all digital they were all digital in the prequels.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So this is really kind of, you can see kind of the authenticity and why kind of like Filoni kind of made that choice to kind of make it more real in a lot of ways, and you can see this is Anakin like peak Clone Wars,
changed his hairdo for the beginning, like the beginning of the Clone Wars is what his hair looked like. Yeah.
So nice touches there and there.
I liked how they set the scene there. I mean, they're in one of the battles in the Clone Wars series, they didn't show a specific scene. It's all smoke and everything. When you think about it,
well, you see
there's so much, so
you
much smoke.
you see the Twi'leks. You see the Twi'leks in the background. So I think it was one of the first episodes of the Clone Wars when they were trying to liberate the Twi'leks from the separatists, the separatists. So yeah, it was like the third or second episode. I don't remember off the top of my head. So that I think that's the battle that we're talking that we're
yeah.
that
So
we're
even Ahsoka in the previous scenes was saying that this was her first battle, and you can tell because she had the green lightsaber, so it was like her first lightsaber. So it's really cool to kind of have this in live action, and it just kind of like reminds us of the richness of the Clone Wars and how important, but also how awesome the stories were in the Clone Wars. And highly recommend people to kind of rewatch that because it really is well done in a lot of ways. Kind of like some of the compelling storylines throughout it. They kind of played along with kind of like the tensions, the tension between characters, on top of the fact that there's a war that's going on. So it's really well done. And the fact that, we get this in live action is just such an amazing treat for a lot of fans of just Star Wars in general.
Yeah, and it's a really good attention to detail as well. Like they got her face paint right. They got the fact that she at the beginning of Clone Wars she was wearing the Padawan like beads in the back, and then when we cut again to the future to a scene later on, the beads are gone because she's not a Padawan anymore because she left the Jedi Order. So it's they really got all the details. It's really cool. It's really cool to see this in live action.
Right, David, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, as Nathaniel pointed out, I mean, as you keep on going, Nathaniel, we go layer for the scene as we saw. Yeah, there you go. And we saw Ahsoka see a flash from Anakin that she knew in the Clone Wars turned to Darth Vader, which led to the scene of the Battle of Mandalore, where she was involved in the battle. Oh no, the season of Mandalore when that was the battle when Anakin and her split up in different things. That Anakin was protecting the Grand Chancellor Palpatine at the time.
Yep.
And while she is helping the Mandalorians lay siege to liberate it, but she felt a presence right before Order 66 was initiated that she felt that something happened, but she didn't know what it was. So then, that's when they later found out the scene that Anakin came over to her and say, I don't remember this battle. And then she explained what happened. That's the battle when we split up. And that's when I found out what happened to you.
Right. So before that happened, before the Siege of Mandalore, it was kind of, they're kind of seeing some of the investigating here. Great visuals on kind of the ghost going near the water. Look at that. That's really well done.
It's
I mean, that's like movie level. That was kind of like
it's good.
when the Millennium Falcon was on the water at Akpo, and so it's very similar to that, but very well done. I'm like, I like this ship. I like Ahsoka ship. It's like, it's not as iconic as say the X-Wing or the Millennium Falcon or like even TIE fighters, but the ships are getting some really good charm, and we've seen the Ghost in multiple iterations as well. So the Ghost is really kind of like, it's coming on to me now. So I'm really liking it a lot.
Yeah. You also see some X-wings there on the water, close to the water. So yeah.
Exactly. So they're still kind of investigating what where it is. I think that they at this point they were trying. I think Jason was trying to say, well, you're going to go to a certain coordinate, and then basically Hera's like, okay, we got to go to this specific coordinate, and that's kind of where the lightsaber battle is happening in that specific coordinate, and probably where Ahsoka is located. So they're trying to look for them and try to say go low. This is what David was talking about with the scene, and you can see that she's a little bit older.
You can also see the Mandalorians that are loyal to Maul, Darth
Maul.
Maul,
Yep, Maul. Yep.
because they have the spikes on their helmet, which is also very cool to see in live action. The Darth Maul committed Mandalorians here. But she does a really good act. She's moving like just like Ahsoka in the cartoon here. Like she's just like spinning around, kicking like both sabers. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can see Captain Rex right here. Yep, go ahead.
It's very cool. We see Captain Rex there, who was voiced by the original Temuera Morrison. I was like happy to hear that when he said the line saying, "Let's get moving." I'm like, "Yep, that's the line. There you go."
Yep.
So, and that's when we saw Anakin pop up saying the line, I don't remember this battle." And then that's when Ahsoka explained to her that's when they split up in two different missions. And then later on, he explained to her about how she felt, and during this battle, that she felt some connection going on, that something happened to him back in the what's called Coruscant, and she felt like, I think at that time when he fought against Darth Maul, she felt she wanted to finish him right away and get back to Coruscant as fast as possible, but she was too late at the time. So,
yeah.
And all of this is actually in the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars. You have to go back to watch it. It's like almost cinematic. It's great.
It is cinematic. It's a pretty good movie. The last couple episodes, like they have
the last four. Go ahead and watch it. Please do that, because it's all about Ahsoka, and it's just like from her point of view. And again, the parallels to that in episode 3. Just well done. Like you don't, the whole thing about making the prequels great again. I mean, Filoni is just like kind of knocked it out of the park here, and I think even with these kind of scenes from live action, kind of making the prequels like it makes you want to revisit them. I'm not kind of like to the point where I want to revisit the movies, but I definitely kind of revisited Clone Wars and just to kind of see that again.
Yeah. I mean, the movies. It makes the movies better. It definitely makes the movies better, especially between the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
And this is just adding to that lore. So yeah, this conversation that she has here with Anakin, because like David said, he wasn't in this battle, so she has to tell him about it. And what he says here is, Ahsoka, within you will be everything I am, all the knowledge I possess, just as I inherited knowledge from my master and he from his. That you're part of a legacy, and that's part of her concern here. Like you said, but she says, but part of my legacy is one of death and war. And that's also her concern. Like she mentions, right. and this is something that Mace Windu mentions in the the Phantom Menace, that they're peacekeepers. They were supposed to be peacekeepers. So she's 14 now when the Clone Wars started. But we know from the Tales of the Jedi that she was taken as a baby. So for 14 years she was trained as a peacekeeper, and now she's now she's a warrior, and it didn't sit with her well when she was 14, and it doesn't sit with her. It still doesn't sit with her well now that she's 40. That she was trained as a peacekeeper for most of her life, most of her early life, and then she was pushed into being a warrior because the Jedi lost their way and decided to stop being peacekeepers and started being generals. So
right, and also I think that what Anakin really said to her was basically, well, I trained you to be a soldier because that's what was necessary for the times, even though she felt very conflicted about that. Like, it's supposed to be peacekeepers, but because we are at war, I have to train you to survive. And if you don't, and you become just a peacekeeper, you're going to die. So that's why I trained you the way that I trained you, was because I wanted you to survive.
Yeah.
Being a Jedi. So that was a very, very good point that he made to kind of, I mean, I don't know if it's justification for war, but at the same time, it's kind of like justification for her survival.
I mean, it's justification for. I mean, he could understand his point of view, but her point of view is also valid here when she says that if I'm everything that you are, she says here you're more than that, Anakin. You're also more powerful and dangerous than anyone realized, and she's just alluding to her becoming Darth Vader. And he says, is that what this is about? What your issue is about? Like you're worried about me becoming. So and then he says again, and then this time his lightsaber is red. So he's basically becoming the Anakin from Mustafar, basically before he became Vader.
Right.
So yeah, it's the other thing that I saw over the last couple of days is that if you go back to the first scene, when it was basically her first battle, she was 14 there and he was 19. So they were basically like child soldiers. So while he has a lot of wisdom to impart to her, they were pushed into this weird situation at very young ages. And it wasn't as she says, it wasn't what they were trained for. They were trained to be peacekeepers, not warriors. So I can understand why she's messed up. So
it's kind of like her own therapy session right now, going through all the trauma and therapy. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, this scene is also.
No, I was just saying that there were some like people thinking like there's like some sort of romantic relationship between Ahsoka and Anakin, which I'm like, are you guys kidding me? No, it's like a brother and sister relationship and stuff like that, or father to sister, father to daughter kind of thing. Because
it's more like a big brother, but yeah, definitely,
yeah, more like a big brother because like you said, like Nathan said that she was taken as a baby, so he had no family. So Anakin is likely the closest thing to her as a family, like more like a father figure to her or brother figure, whichever. And then, so it hurt her a lot more and something like that, which led to this fight of like he cooked her out on that flashback, and then he shows up walking like Vader, and then he says the line, "You lack conviction," and you see his eyes turning red, not pure Sith eyes, which is a little yellow in the middle, just red. That's it. So and he fights him, and his skin turns pale.
Yeah, it's just like he looked in Mustafar. And I think when he came out when he kicked her back. Yeah, there's the transition. You see him as Vader a little bit as well here for a second. Is the great, like I said, the visuals on this episode very very evocative and very cool. Because if we're going back to what we were talking about earlier, when we're not sure whether or not this is a Force ghost, or whether or not this is another being, whether or not this is Anakin, or whether or not this is her subjective point of view. Her seeing Vader there kind of lends itself to the option that it's her subjective point of view, because she's kind of seeing Vader even though Anakin is there, because that's what she sees whenever she sees Anakin now is what he became. So
right, exactly. Yeah, still, I mean, look at the red eyes, like you said, David. It's just like, wow, this is just like you said, Nathan. It's like he's on Mustafar all over again. It's like, wow, this is really, really good.
Yeah, and when she beats him here, you also see red in her, like seeing like her the possibility that she could turn. You see right there,
right. Yeah, and also this is kind of like where she said that she wants to live, that she doesn't want to die. That she wants to there you go, like she wants to live again and choose to live, and I think that this is where a lot of her issues comes to a head and say, okay, now I come to some realization, now some self-realization. Okay, I've gone through kind of like this journey now. I'm in a better kind of mental state, to kind of say I want to
live.
live.
And here I think it means it's two meanings. Of course, it means like I want to live because I want to beat him or whatever. But it's more like I choose to live in the future as opposed to the past. I choose to move forward. I think is what she's saying here. When she says I choose to live. I choose not to dwell.
Right.
I choose not to dwell on what I could have done if I stayed with you to save you. What the lives that because we started the flashback when she turned into a child with her regret because if you remember in the early episode of the Clone Wars, she made this mistake and it led to a bunch of clones dying. So we see her remembering that she lost people because of her decision. So I think a lot of that stuff is weighing on her. A lot of that stuff is keeping her from pushing forward. It's probably why she left Sabine as well. She didn't want her to die, and she was concerned that her having her as a Padawan would lead to Sabine's death. So she's now choosing to kind of put that stuff to the side, or let it inform her, but not necessarily rule her and live her life, which it's good. It's really good writing, which is
which is something we don't really say a lot. I mean, we haven't really said that much about not just Star Wars, but I mean, we there were some episodes of Andor where we were like, "Oh, this is really good writing. Actually, this is actually good."
And Andor is kind of like on another level for everything. So like, this is the best thing that we've seen, except for Andor, always, because Andor is like for adults. Like this is for this. Kids can watch this, and it's not insulting their intelligence. This is the best that we've seen of like classic kind of Star Wars, where it's not insulting kids' intelligence like the original trilogies, but it's still not necessarily like at an adult level like Andor, because you got a lot of complex political intrigue and back and forth in Andor. So it's not Andor level, but it's still pretty high. It's it's basically at the level of the Clone Wars stuff. Like that was also written for kids, but it was sophisticated enough that adults could. Because I watched it as an adult. I was like in my 20s, 30s when I was watching Clone Wars stuff because that's when it was on. So late 20s, early 30s when it was on. So like it's really good. And of course that was Dave Filoni's show. So yeah. And you see him change back here.
This is kind of like where, he changed back to kind of like where he was at the very beginning of the episode. So it's like lesson finished, training completed.
There's hope. There's hope for you yet. He says, okay, and then he's gone.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then this transition is also pretty cool. Like her transitioning out of the water, you can see that this is kind of like a biblical allusion here, baptism, resurrection. So there's a biblical reference here, but there's also later on we'll see a reference to tokenish, to like Gandalf the White coming back to life as well.
Yeah, I know it did. And also now that you just remind me, it's kind of like Skyfall.
Skyfall.
Oh, Skyfall.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
Was in...
Yeah.
Oh, Skyfall.
Gotta remind you of that too. And how he said, like his hobby is resurrection. Pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
We're all the same. Now this scene kind of really, it perplexed me a little bit as to kind of she removed her headpiece here. I don't know if it's because she was sleeping or something like that, but she spent a lot of time kind of having this removed. So I was wondering,
what do you mean by removed? Like, it's just the head. It's just like a headband. I mean, it's like this is what all her people look like without like jewelry on. Like it was just like the face paint. The what's on her face is face paint. Like their skin is orange, and this is all cultural like tattoo like painting on her face.
Right, but I was just kind of like thinking about, any type of symbolism as to why, her headband is not there, because she spent like a
I
few,
don't know.
like maybe a good, oh, yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know
I don't think it's
what,
something that you would sleep with. I think it'd be uncomfortable to sleep
okay.
with it. Like, yeah,
I didn't know. I mean, maybe she lied down with it before. I
yeah.
don't know, but I have to look back at to see what's happening there. But yeah, she's kind of like getting into like you said, Nathan, the
You
Gandalf
can
the
also
White
see
type of mode.
her ears there, like what her alien ears look like, because those are
Yeah, like a Gale
those
look. It's a Gale
those are
looking
usually
one.
covered by the headpiece as well, but you can see her ears there. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, very
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, so this is where kind of like, I don't know what the context of this was.
They were talking about Sabine. They were
I'm
talking
not
about
sure
Sabine
what
basically,
yeah, they're
and
talking
they're
about
trying
Sabine. Yeah, yeah,
and they're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about how to find her, and they're thinking they're thinking through how to find her, and then she comes to a solution, because shows her the 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 way
Skin
the
map.
map, and then it's broken, and then she uses her ability to sense the conversation that she had with Balin, right? So yeah,
right,
yeah,
right. This is the Gandalf the White scene.
yeah,
you know, she was. I mean, at the end of Rebels, at the end of the show, she was kind of like Gandalf the White. So, yes, they didn't really do that in live action. They kind of skipped
they
that in some
retconned it
ways.
so they could
Yeah,
actually have her death and
yeah,
resurrection in this show. So
right,
she was in gray when she picked up Sabine, but now I
right.
think from the rest of the series she's going to be in white. So
Hmm.
yeah, this is
Right.
her sensing the conversation, and so we saw this conversation at the end of the last episode. So it's basically her hearing Sabine being persuaded by Balin. Um,
Hmm. Right.
so so this is where she realizes that she's with them. Um, so yeah,
And that it's a kind of her mission to kind of trying to find
yeah,
her and to kind of figure out how to
right,
find her in a lot of ways. But then she starts to realize that, um, you know, that it maybe is a good idea to kind of look at the
yeah.
Purgles to
So
kind
this
of
is her looking up
see.
at yeah,
There we go.
yeah.
There's the
She's
Purgles. Try to kind of see where their thinking's at, and try to use the Force. This scene was very interesting too because this is Mon Mothma right here, and she's played Mon Mothma in several other iterations
mhm.
as well. So, and trying
including
to
Andor, which we were
basically,
talking about just now. So yeah,
yep, yep, and like basically, denying Hera to continue on with this
no,
mission, and
she's saying here that the because I have the subtitles. There's the Senate Oversight Committee is going to determine whether or not to take her
right,
command away from her. So yeah,
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 politics,
Yeah.
yeah,
politicians, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, so basically also trying to defy orders in some ways and she was basically asking Carson to stall because the fleet command's actually on its way to there right now, and trying to again buy time for Ahsoka to speak with the Purgles so that she kind of knows where they're headed in a lot
hmm
of ways. And again, this scene kind of reminds us of Rebels in a lot of ways.
yeah,
So this is pretty cool visuals
yeah.
here of them kind of traveling and
Yeah,
things. Yeah,
they realize the Purgles very well, and like all of this stuff, like we were talking about earlier, this is like movie level visuals here. I mean, look how big it just keeps going and going
Huge.
and going and going, and it's not even as it get yeah.
yeah,
Um,
very well
ver-
done. I mean, that's just very well done visually. And just yeah, and this is why there was limited release. I mean, they hyped it up to say, oh, it's gonna be released limitedly in
Yeah,
theaters and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Now
Yeah,
why?
we didn't talk about that earlier. Earlier this week, this episode was shown in theaters. So yeah, and I think it was worth it. They spent a lot of money on it, obviously. So to make those visuals look good, and also the cinematographer, Dave Filoni is not as skilled or as seasoned a director as say Ryan Johnson or what's his name, the guy who did the J.J. Abrams, but he's a great storyteller, and he coupled with a really great cinematographer here. So even though he might not choose like the most interesting shots, like they all look beautiful in this episode because the cinematographer that he's working with is making every single shot look like a beautiful image. So yeah.
And so here Carson is kind of trying to stall for time right here and trying to basically, I don't really understand what you're talking about. It's just really interesting to kind of how he is able to kind of work his way through stalling them from coming to try to interfere with what Ahsoka and Hera is doing. And so she's kind of here using the Force to basically talk with the Purgle. I'm surprised that they used Baleen, and it's kind of like it is basically baleen whales. So baleen whales are the ones that have the brushes, not teeth, so they're not really teeth. So it's very interesting that they use those type of imagery.
Yeah, it's those. I think what's his name? I'm blanking on the director's name. Denny. He did the same thing with the.
Denny Villeneuve.
Yeah, he did the same thing with the Dune worms as well. These are, like you said, they're not necessarily teeth. They're to keep like they're kind of filters to keep things out of the mouth. Things out of the mouth. So yeah.
Yep.
But if they're supposed to be whales,
and again, any of the big whales that you see on Earth, they all have that. They all have these. It's called baleen. It's like the filters. So it's very similar to that. But yeah, it's so this. Yeah, all these visuals here really great with the ghost ship right there, and then they kind of pick up something on radar, and you see the whole. Now look at this. This is like really good. Like very like in animation it was really good. Now you see it in live action, you're like, whoa, this is just amazing. And they're like look at them. They're like intrigued too. They're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and I think Hera said you should probably just get out of the way or move with them because they could probably damage the ships if they didn't. So.
This scene is kind of very similar, like the interaction there between Hera and Ahsoka is very much like the end of Empire Strikes Back, where it's like, oh, there's some hope there. We're gonna find Sabine. It's kind of like that scene with Lando. It's like with Luke. It's like, oh, we're gonna find Han. We're gonna rescue Han. So it's kind of like that type. It's a very nice parallel, very nice parallel to Empire Strikes Back. So yeah, and then that was pretty much the end of it as the Purgles go into hyperspace and to try to off to the next adventure.
Yeah.
And the end credits is just so amazing. The music is just so really good. It's I'm really kind of digging the whole vibe here. The endings, the end credits.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like I know all their shows, they usually have the credits at the end, but this is I think I heard someone mention that they're good enough that they could be at the beginning, like Game of Thrones, and I think that would give this show. I mean, maybe they'll do it with the next show. Who knows whether or not the next show will be as good? But like, if they put it at the beginning, they definitely break it up and not make all the shows look the same. Having this at the beginning, it's not that long, and then you can have other credits at the end where you have like the writers and things like this. But this is like the credits that you usually see at the beginning of a show, basically, because it's a really cool animation. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think with the opening credits, they did try something different in terms of really getting to the more ethereal instead of the regular Disney Plus intro that you see. But they still kept the helmets and the different types of helmets and stuff. They still kept that, but with different sounds. So they did try to change it a little bit, but yeah, the end credits are definitely really good. I really do enjoy watching them.
Everyone is trying to have a tag to at the beginning of their things to signify their franchise. Like Marvel started it first with the comic book things, and then DC did a thing, and now whatchamacallit, Star Wars feels like they have to do a thing to signify, oh, this is part of the Star Wars franchise. Star Trek is doing it now as well. There's like a ship at the begining of every show.
Yeah.
Whatever show you're watching, the ship turns into like the Star Trek Delta. So yeah, I guess they have that at the beginning of everything now. So just like the Marvel comic books, although it's not comic books anymore now. It's just now that we're 10 years into Marvel, it's basically just scenes from other Marvel movies,
right?
And also like scripts, as well, as opposed to like Marvel pages. So yeah,
right. Okay. Any final thoughts about part 5 here?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
For me, I would say this. For the longest time in my mind, I felt like there's a subconscious disconnect between the animated shows like the Clone Wars, the Bad Batch, and everything between basically a disconnecting between the animated and the long action lores of Star Wars. Right. This episode is for the first time I felt like the entire canon of Star Wars came together from across the decades, from the Attack of the Clones all the way up to after Return of the Jedi. So, and also what I'm really this is one of the biggest reason of I give it a 9, because of Hayden Christensen really has really embodied this time. The more than even the Kenobi show, and he really embodied. Hayden Christensen really embodied Anakin Skywalker, not Darth Vader. Anakin Skywalker, because this is because Anakin Skywalker is who Ahsoka is associated with the most. She knows that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader, but it's not entirely all him and everything. So, Hayden Christensen portraying Anakin Skywalker in different ages, from when he first brought in Ahsoka to the Clone Wars, up to the last meeting point where they before they split up, before he became Darth Vader. I give Hayden Christensen my hats off to him for really embodying Anakin Skywalker. I would say near perfectly, because he embodied the character a lot. And then like Nick Daniels says, that I think I like Anakin more than Luke Skywalker now, because we know Anakin's upbringing from when he was a kid, from episode 1, Phantom Menace, up until now. So now we see him there. And then also we get to see for the very first time that Anakin has some sort of redemption kind of thing, even though we're not sure if it's really him as a Force ghost.
I mean, his redemption came in the Jedi movie, right? Like he could have killed his son, and he didn't. He attacked Sidious. I think that's where his redemption came. But yeah, the reason I appreciate what you're saying, and I agree with it in this regard. He got his closure with his son, and now he gets his closure with his Padawan, which connects all the way from the Phantom Menace all the way to Return of the Jedi, or was it Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi was
Return of the Jedi. So it connects all the way through. So he got his redemption with his son. And at the end of that, Lucas recut that movie so that the Force ghost that shows up at the end is actually Hayden Christensen. So now he gets his redemption with his Padawan as well. So yeah.
And there's also one thing I had to point out though. This is I kind of was hoping on this one moment. This happened in Rebels, when Kanan became a Jedi, officially. I thought that that Ahsoka would finally become a Jedi herself, but again, she left the Jedi Order, so I'm not sure how that would work if she were given that title. But
I
this,
mean,
I
is
feel
Luke
like
is the Jedi Order doesn't exist? Is Luke a Jedi? I think he's a Jedi. So if he's a Jedi, Ahsoka's a Jedi. Like
well,
there's no order anymore. But Luke became a
well,
Jedi.
was well that brings me up to another point because you remember back in Return of the Jedi when Luke Skywalker visited Yoda and he wants to complete his training. Yoda says no training required, and Luke said that I'm a Jedi. But Yoda says, no, there's one more thing you have to do. You have to face your biggest fear. So
Right.
Ahsoka's biggest fear is accepting what she has done in her past and stop blaming herself for everything she has done and everything, and stop blaming herself if she was one of the causes
Mm-hmm.
of Anakin's transformation to become Darth Vader and led to his life to the dark side. So I believe that was her biggest test. That she could have become a Jedi, but I like this. I was thinking I would expect to see. I think I was kind of have a expectation that Anakin Skywalker will raise his lightsaber and says, I dubbed the Ahsoka Jedi Knight." So, but again, as you pointed out, Nathaniel, that there's no Jedi Order right now. It's Luke right now recreating a new order right now.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
But I understand what you're saying, David, is that there's definitely some parallels between Luke and Ahsoka in a lot of ways. Both of them are trying to kind of reconcile their feelings, their conflicted feelings about Anakin in a lot of ways. So it's very, very nice parallels there. And again, if you want to go back to watch kind of Boba Fett, you kind of saw a little bit of that parallel. Not parallel, but they actually intersect. Their worlds intersect in one of the episodes in Boba Fett where Luke was with Ahsoka. So
yeah,
very interesting stuff there overall.
where
But
she
yeah,
says
so
she's a friend of the family. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So this is what we think. Please tell us what you think. So again, like, share, subscribe on more content like this, and we will see you in the next episode of Ahsoka and other type of content. We've been kind of doing a lot of content creation right now, so hopefully, again, you can support us on this channel. All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.